The muddy water closed over Sophie's head as her wheelchair sank deeper into the stream. Through the murky current, she could see her father's silhouette walking away on the bank, not even looking back. Her lungs burned for air when suddenly, powerful movement cut through the water beside her. Sophie felt herself being lifted, the strong neck of thunder beneath her tiny arms as the horse fought against the current. "Hold tight, little one," whispered Mary, watching from the riverbank, with tears streaming down her weathered face. "That animal just changed both your destinies forever." Richard Miller checked his Rolex for the third time in 5 minutes. 4:30 p.m. Perfect timing. The hiking trail along Willow Creek would be empty now, caught in that dead zone between the afternoon joggers and the evening dog walkers. He adjusted, his rearview mirror catching a glimpse of Sophie in the back seat. His 5-year-old daughter's head was tilted against the window, her honey blonde curls, just like her mother's, framing her delicate face. The wheelchair was folded in the trunk of his Mercedes. "Almost there, sweetheart," he said, forcing warmth into his voice. Sophie's eyes flickered toward him without interest. She hadn't spoken much since Emily disappeared 6 months ago. The doctors called it selective mutism, triggered by trauma. Richard called it inconvenient. He turned down the narrow access road that locals used to reach the fishing spots along Willow Creek. The spring rains had swollen the normally gentle stream into something more dangerous. The current moved with "On purpose now, deep enough, fast enough. Daddy's taking you somewhere special today," Richard said, parking the car under the shade of an old oak tree. "Remember how you always wanted to go on a boat ride?" Sophie's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't been out of the house much since the accident that put her in the wheelchair 3 months ago. An accident that insurance investigators still had questions about. Richard unfolded her wheelchair with practiced movements and lifted Sophie from the car. She felt lighter than before. He'd been forgetting to remind the housekeeper about her. "Lunch again? Look at that view, Sophie," he said, pushing her chair toward the water's edge. The creek stretched wide here, almost like a small river. Beautiful, isn't it? The small rowboat he had stashed here yesterday was still hidden in the reeds. Richard set about preparing it, occasionally glancing over his shoulder to ensure they were still alone. In the distance, a horse grazed in a meadow adjacent to the creek. Otherwise, the place was deserted. Sophie's hands gripped the armrests of her wheelchair as she watched her father with wary eyes. She hadn't seen him this animated in months. Usually, he barely acknowledged her existence, leaving her care to a rotation of increasingly uninterested nannies and housekeepers. But today, he was smiling. Not the warm smile from before Mommy left, but something that didn't reach his eyes. Richard pulled the boat to the muddy bank. "Adventure time, princess!" He lifted Sophie from the wheelchair, noting how she stiffened at his touch. The chair he left on the bank, no need for that where they were going. As he placed her in the boat, Sophie's eyes caught something over his shoulder. The grazing horse had raised its head and was watching them intently. A magnificent creature with a dark coat that gleamed almost blue-black in the afternoon light. "Hold still now," Richard instructed as the boat rocked beneath them. He pushed off from the shore with an oar, guiding them toward the middle of the creek where the current ran strongest. Sophie's hands clutched the wooden seat beneath her. Something was wrong. Daddy hadn't brought any fishing rods, no picnic basket, not even her life jacket that the swimming teacher said she should always wear near water. "You know, Sophie," Richard said, his voice casual as he shipped the oars, "I met with Mr. Banks at the trust company yesterday." Sophie stared at him, her blue eyes, Emily's eyes, unnervingly perceptive. "Your grandmother left everything to you. Did you know that?" He laughed without humor. $15 million, and I can't touch a penny until you're 21. Unless, of course, something happens to you. Then it all reverts to your mother, and with Emily gone." He shrugged. "Well, that's just bad luck all around." Understanding dawned in Sophie's eyes as Richard stood up, making the boat rock dangerously. The current was pulling them faster now. "I really did love you once," Richard said, and for a brief moment, something like regret crossed his face. But I can't wait 16 more years, not with the people I owe breathing down my neck. Sophie's mouth opened, perhaps to speak for the first time in months, perhaps to scream. But Richard moved quickly. One sharp push was all it took to topple her. Small body over the side of the boat. The splash was shockingly insignificant. Richard watched the spot where she'd gone under, counting the seconds. 1, 2. On the distant shore, the black horse suddenly reared up, its whinny carrying across the water like a battle cry. 3, 4. Sophie's head broke the surface once, her arms flailing. 5, 6. She went under again. The current was stronger than he'd anticipated, carrying her downstream quickly. Richard picked up the oar and began rowing back to shore. By the time anyone found her, it would look like a tragic accident. A disabled child, a moment of inattention, a dangerous current. Who would question it? He was, after all, Richard Miller, grieving widower, devoted father, pillar of the community. As he reached the shore and secured the boat, something caught his eye. The black horse had disappeared from the meadow. Odd, but irrelevant. Richard grabbed Sophie's empty wheelchair and tipped it sideways into the mud near the water's edge, evidence of their struggle to reach the boat, of his desperate attempt to save her. He took one last look at the churning water moving downstream, then turned away. There was work to be done, a missing child to report, a performance of heartbreak to deliver. Behind him, unnoticed, the water splashed violently in the distance as something large entered the creek downstream, heading toward where Sophie had disappeared. Thunder had always been different from the other horses at Miller Estate. Richard had purchased the majestic black stallion as a status symbol 2 years ago, impressed by his pedigree and powerful build. But the horse had proven stubborn, refusing to be fully broken or controlled. Emily had been the only one who could handle him with any success. After she disappeared, Richard had relegated Thunder to the farthest pasture, planning to sell him, but never quite getting around to it. That afternoon, Thunder had broken through a weak section of fencing. Some primal instinct had drawn him to the creek, to this specific bend in the water. Now, as he watched the small human child disappear beneath the current, something stirred in his massive chest. A purpose. The stallion bolted down the bank, his powerful legs eating up the distance. He plunged into the water without hesitation, the cold spring current washing around his muscular body. Years of instinct told him to avoid deep water, but something stronger drove him forward. The child had gone under again, the creek's hungry, currents pulling her small form downstream. Meanwhile, Jack Henderson was enjoying his afternoon ritual. At 65, the retired veterinarian found peace in his daily walks along Willow Creek. His weathered hands gripped a simple wooden walking stick as he navigated the uneven path. 20 years of tending to the animals of Millfield County had left him with a bad knee and a wealth of stories. Now he lived alone in a modest cabin near the water, finding companionship in the books that lined his walls and the occasional visits from his neighbor, Mary Winters. Jack paused, squinting against the afternoon sun. Something was happening downstream, a large, dark shape in the water. He quickened his pace, wincing at the protest from his knee. As he rounded the bend, he froze at the impossible sight before him. A massive black horse was swimming purposefully. Through the churning water, and clutched to its mane was a small child. "Good Lord," Jack whispered. Dropping his walking stick and scrambling down the bank, Thunder fought against the current, his powerful legs propelling him forward with determination that seemed almost human. The child, a little girl, Jack now saw, had somehow managed to grasp the horse's flowing mane. Her face was pale with fear and cold, but her grip remained firm, even as water splashed around them. Jack waded into the shallows, waving his arms. "This way! Bring her this way!" As if understanding, Thunder angled toward the bank where Jack stood. When his hooves finally found purchase on the muddy bottom, the stallion carefully made his way to shore, moving with deliberate gentleness, despite his exhaustion. The little girl was shivering violently, her clothes soaked through. Jack quickly removed his jacket, wrapping it around her tiny shoulders as she slid from the horse's back into his arms. "You're safe now, little one," Jack said, his voice gentle. "What's your name?" The child stared at him with wide blue eyes, but didn't speak. Jack noticed her legs hanging limply as he held her. Something was wrong with them. Thunder shook himself, water spraying in all directions, then stepped closer, nudging the girl's arm with his muzzle. A strange bond had formed between them in those terrifying moments in the water. "Well, I don't know how you two found each other," Jack said, looking between the child and horse, "but I'd say you both deserve a medal." Jack lived alone, had done so since his wife passed 10 years ago, but those instincts to care, to protect, never really disappear. He cradled the girl closer. "Let's get you warmed up. My cabin's just up the path." As Jack turned to leave, Thunder followed, his wet coat glistening in the late afternoon sun. Jack didn't try to shoo him away. Some things were meant to be questioned later. Mary Winters was watering her prized dahlias when she spotted Jack emerging from the forest path, carrying a child and followed by a massive black horse. At 58, Mary had been Jack's neighbor. For 8 years, the former emergency room nurse had moved to the countryside after 3 decades of trying to save lives in Chicago's busiest hospital. "Jack Henderson!" she called out, dropping her watering can. "What in heaven's name?" "Mary, I need your help," Jack replied, already heading toward her front porch. "This little girl was in the creek. The horse, he saved her." Mary took one look at the child's blue-tinged lips and snapped into nurse mode. "Bring her inside. Hypothermia by the looks of it." As Jack carried the girl into Mary's cozy cottage, Thunder remained outside, standing sentinel on the front lawn as if keeping watch. Inside, Mary quickly gathered towels and blankets. Her clothes need to come off. She needs warmth right now. Together they gently removed the girl's sodden dress and tights. Mary gasped when she saw the surgical scars on the child's legs. "Jack, look at this. Recent operations. And these legs, they're not developing properly." "I noticed she wasn't moving them," Jack said quietly. As they wrapped her in warm blankets and Mary prepared hot tea with honey, Jack studied the little girl's face. There was something familiar about her delicate features, the curve of her jaw. "Do you know your name, sweetheart?" Mary asked, her voice soft as she brushed wet curls from the child's forehead. The girl looked between them, fear and uncertainty in her eyes. Finally, she whispered, so faintly they almost missed it. "Sophie." "Sophie," Jack repeated. "That's a beautiful name. I'm Jack, and this is my friend Mary." Sophie's eyes darted to the window, where she could see Thunder's dark shape moving back and forth across the lawn. "And that big fellow out there," Jack added, following her gaze. "I guess he's your guardian angel." Sophie's lips trembled, forming words that seemed difficult to push out. "Daddy, put me in the water." Jack and Mary exchanged shocked glances. "Your daddy?" Mary asked carefully. "He put you in the creek?" Sophie nodded, a tear slipping down her pale cheek. "Was it an accident?" Jack asked, though something in his gut told him it wasn't. Sophie shook her head slowly, eyes wide with remembered terror. "He said, 'Money, when I'm gone.'" Mary's hand flew to her mouth. Jack felt a cold anger spreading through his chest, different from anything he'd experienced in his 65 years. "Sophie, you're safe now," he said firmly. "We won't let anyone hurt you again." As darkness fell outside, Thunder finally lay down on Mary's lawn, his eyes fixed on the cottage door. Inside, Sophie drifted into an exhausted sleep on Mary's couch, clutching a mug of half-finished tea. Jack stood at the window, watching the horse. "I've never seen anything like it, Mary. That animal knew exactly what he was doing." Mary joined him, her nurse's hands still automatically straightening blankets. "The question is, who does she belong to, and what do we do now?" Jack's jaw tightened. If what she said is true, if her own father tried to... He couldn't finish the sentence. "We can't just hand her back. The authorities," Mary began, "would give her right back to him without proof," Jack interrupted. You know how these things work. Rich man's word against a little girl who barely speaks. Thunder raised his head suddenly, looking toward the forest path. His ears pricked forward, listening intently. "We need time," Jack said decisively. "Time to figure out who she is, what happened, find some evidence." Mary nodded slowly. "So we're harboring a missing child and a stolen horse." "Seems that way," Jack agreed, a small smile breaking through his concern. "Not how I plan to spend my retirement." A distant sound of vehicles on the main road filtered. Through the trees, Sophie stirred in her sleep, whimpering slightly. "I should move her to my place," Jack said. "Your cottage is too close to the road, and frankly we don't know who might come looking." Mary's eyes flashed with determination. "I'm coming with you. She needs medical attention, and I don't trust you to make decent chicken soup." As Jack carefully lifted the sleeping child, Sophie's eyes fluttered open briefly. "Thunder," she whispered. "Don't worry," Jack assured her. "Your horse is coming too." Outside, Thunder rose to his feet as if he'd understood every word, ready to follow wherever they took his little human. Morning light filtered through the worn curtains of Jack's cabin, casting dappled patterns across Sophie's sleeping face. It had been 3 days since the rescue at Willow Creek. Jack watched from the doorway of his spare bedroom as the little girl stirred. Her golden curls tangled against the pillow. In sleep, her face relaxed, free from the wariness that characterized her waking hours. A soft nudge at his back made Jack turn. Thunder stood in the hallway, his massive frame somehow navigating the cabin's interior without knocking anything over. The horse had refused to stay in the barn, instead positioning himself either outside Sophie's window or, when allowed inside, as close to her as possible. "I know, big fella," Jack whispered. "I'm worried about her too." Mary appeared at his side, carrying a tray with oatmeal and apple slices. "Has she talked any more about what happened?" Jack shook his head. "Only nightmares. She cries out sometimes, but when she's awake, she barely speaks." They had established a fragile routine. Jack had moved a small daybed into the main room of his cabin, relinquishing his bedroom to Mary while he took the couch. Sophie occupied the spare room that had once belonged to Jack's son, Michael, before he moved to Seattle 15 years ago. "The news is everywhere," Mary murmured, nodding toward the radio on the kitchen counter. "Richard Miller's desperate search for his missing daughter. The tragic accident at Willow Creek." Jack's jaw tightened. "Accident. That man pushed her in and left her to drown." "We need proof, Jack. Right now, it's just the word of a traumatized 5-year-old against one of the most powerful men in the county." Sophie's eyes fluttered open, immediately finding Thunder in the doorway. A small smile touched her lips, the first they'd seen. "Good morning, sunshine," Mary said, moving into the room with practiced ease. "Hungry today?" Sophie nodded, slightly, struggling to sit up. Her legs remained motionless beneath the quilt. Jack had examined her the first night, his veterinary knowledge extending enough to human anatomy to recognize the signs. "Spinal injury," he'd told Mary privately. "Recent, maybe a few months old. She has some movement and sensation, but something interrupted her recovery." Now, as Mary helped Sophie with breakfast, Jack retreated to the kitchen where the morning newspaper lay open. Richard Miller's face stared back at him from the front page, anguish perfectly arranged in his expression. As he stood beside Willow Creek, Sophie's wheelchair displayed prominently for the cameras. "The search continues for 5-year-old Sophie Miller, who disappeared 3 days ago in a tragic accident at Willow Creek," Jack read quietly. "Miller is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to his daughter's recovery." The article mentioned Sophie's special needs and the devastating loss Richard had already suffered when his wife, Emily Miller, had disappeared 6 months earlier, presumed dead after her car was found abandoned near Millfield Lake. "Jack!" Mary's urgent whisper pulled him from his thoughts. "Come here, quick!" He hurried back to the bedroom. Sophie had pulled something from the pocket of her dress, the one she'd been wearing when Thunder saved her. It was a small, waterproof pouch, the kind used for keeping valuables dry during water activities. With trembling fingers, Sophie opened it. revealing a folded piece of paper protected by the waterproof casing. She held it out to Jack, her blue eyes intense. "From Mommy," she whispered. Jack unfolded the paper carefully. The handwriting was elegant but rushed, as if written in haste. "My darling Sophie, if you're reading this, something has happened to me. Keep this with you always. Trust no one, especially not your father. The Blue Butterfly House is safe. Everything you need is in box 742 at First Millfield Bank. The key is with Claire. Remember our special word, Mariposa. I love you more than all the stars." "Mommy, Emily," Mary breathed, reading over Jack's shoulder. She knew she was in danger. Jack crouched beside Sophie's bed. "Sophie, do you know what this means? The Blue Butterfly House. Who is Claire?" Sophie's face scrunched in concentration. "Aunt Claire, Mommy's sister, and the special word, it means butterfly," Sophie said. "In Spanish. Mommy taught me." Jack exchanged glances with Mary. This changed everything. Emily Miller hadn't just disappeared. She'd prepared for something to happen. "The bank box," Mary said quietly. "It might have evidence. About Richard, about what happened to Emily." Sophie's small hand clutched at Jack's sleeve. "Is Mommy alive?" The boom. Question hung in the air, heavy with hope and fear. Jack wished he could offer certainty. "I don't know, sweetheart," he answered honestly. "But we're going to try to find out." Thunder nickered softly from the doorway, as if offering his own reassurance. Later that afternoon, while Sophie napped with Thunder keeping watch outside her window, Jack and Mary sat at the kitchen table, speaking in hushed tones. "We need to find Claire," Jack said, "and we need to access that bank box." Mary nodded, her nurse's mind already cataloguing necessary supplies. "Sophie needs proper medical attention too. Those legs, with the right physical therapy, she might walk again." "First things first," Jack replied, spreading out a local map. "I need to go into town, gather information, see what people are saying." "Is that safe? Your face could be recognized." Jack smiled grimly. "One advantage of being ordinary, Mary. I've lived here 40 years, but Richard Miller wouldn't know me from Adam. To men like him, people like us are invisible." Mary wasn't convinced. "His security team is searching everywhere. They've been up and down the main road twice now. All the more reason to know what we're dealing with," Jack insisted, "and to find Claire before they do." Sophie's voice drifted from the bedroom, caught in another nightmare. Mary immediately went to her, leaving Jack alone with his thoughts. He studied Emily's note again. The Blue Butterfly House. Something about that tickled his memory, but he couldn't place it. Millfield County wasn't small, covering nearly 400 square miles of rural Pennsylvania. The butterfly reference could mean anything. A knock at the door froze Jack mid-thought. Nobody knew they were here. Nobody should be knocking. He moved silently to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. A delivery van was parked in his drive, Peterson's Groceries emblazoned on its side. The elderly figure of Joe Peterson himself stood on the porch, holding a box of supplies. Jack relaxed marginally, opening the door a crack. "Joe, wasn't expecting a delivery." Joe Peterson adjusted his glasses. "Order came in yesterday. Paid in. Full already." He consulted a crumpled invoice. "Let's see Mary Winter's name on it. Said to deliver to your address, that right?" Jack nodded slowly, taking the box. "Mary's staying with me for a bit." "Thanks, Joe." As the delivery van disappeared down the long driveway, Jack carried the box to the kitchen. Mary emerged from Sophie's room. "What was that about?" she asked, concern etched on her face. "Grocery delivery. In your name." Jack studied her expression. "You didn't order anything, did you?" Mary shook her head. "No, I haven't had the chance to call anyone, let alone order groceries." With cautious movements, Jack opened the box. On top of a selection of basic supplies, canned goods, bread, children's medicine, lay an envelope addressed to the Guardian Angels. Inside was a short note in the same handwriting as Emily's letter to Sophie. "Thank you for saving her. C is watching. The Miller, Blue Butterflies still safe." 2 days, midnight, Park Trail entrance. Jack and Mary stared at each other. "Emily," Jack whispered. "She's alive. And she knows we have Sophie, Mary added, a shiver running through her. But how? Outside, Thunder suddenly lifted his head, staring intently at the tree line surrounding the property. His ears swiveled forward, listening to something only he could hear. "Someone's watching us," Jack said, moving to the window. "Someone who knows Emily, who knows we rescued Sophie. Someone who knows which groceries to send for a 5-year-old child," Mary observed, noting the children's fever reducer and apple juice in the box. Sophie appeared in the bedroom doorway, using her arms to drag herself along the floor, a method of movement they'd discovered she'd developed during her months of limited mobility. "Butterflies mean hope," she said simply. "That's what Mommy always says." Her use of present tense, says, not said, didn't escape Jack's notice. Perhaps Sophie had never fully believed her mother was gone. "Sophie," he asked gently, "do you know where the Blue Butterfly House is?" The little girl's eyes grew distant, remembering. "It's where the Happies live. Mommy said we'd go there if the bad times came." Jack crouched down to her level. "And did the bad times come, Sophie?" She nodded solemnly. "When Daddy started yelling all the time, when he pushed Mommy down the stairs." Mary gasped softly. "That's when your legs got hurt?" Jack asked, keeping his voice steady despite the rage building inside him. "No," Sophie whispered. "That was after. Mommy went away. He said it was an accident. The doctor believed him." Jack and Mary exchanged glances over Sophie's head, a silent communication born of their growing partnership. "2 days," Mary said. "We wait 2 days, then meet whoever sent this at the park entrance. And in the meantime," Jack added, "I'm still going into town. We need supplies, information." Sophie pulled herself closer to Jack, her small hand finding his. "Will you find Mommy?" The hope in her voice was almost unbearable. Jack gathered her into his arms, lifting her easily. "We're going to try, Sophie. With all our hearts, we're going to try." Thunder's neigh from outside seemed to underscore the promise, a pledge from man and horse alike to protect this child, to find the truth. As evening settled over the cabin, Jack made preparations for his trip into town the next day. A storm was brewing on the horizon, dark clouds gathering above the distant mountains. Inside, Mary tucked Sophie into bed, humming a lullaby. Outside, Thunder maintained his vigil, and somewhere in Millfield County, someone who knew the truth was watching, waiting, preparing to reveal what really happened to Emily Miller. Richard Miller paced the marble floors of his study, phone pressed to his ear. The crystal tumbler in his hand was empty again, the 3rd time in the past hour. "I don't care what it costs," he snapped. "Find her. Find the horse, too. That animal is worth more than your annual salary." He ended the call and hurled the empty glass across the room. It shattered against the fireplace, fragments glittering in the light from the chandelier. 3 days. 3 days since his perfect plan had gone sideways. Sophie should have been found downstream by now, a tragic accident. The insurance investigators would have closed the case on Emily's disappearance too. Instead, both Sophie and Thunder had vanished without a trace. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Enter!" he barked. His security chief Harrison stepped in, his face carefully neutral. At 45, the former military man had served Richard for 8 years, handling problems that required discretion and occasionally force. "Sir, we've completed the sweep of the eastern sector. Nothing." Richard rubbed his temples. "What about the locals? Anyone acting suspicious? Anyone suddenly gone missing themselves?" "Nothing concrete. Though there's an old vet, lives near the Greek. Neighbor says he hasn't seen him for a couple days, but the guy's a loner, could be nothing." Richard paused. "A veterinarian?" "Yes, sir. Jack Henderson. Treated half the county's animals before he retired." "Including horses?" Harrison nodded slowly, understanding dawning. "I'll look into him." "Do that." And Harrison, Richard fixed him with a cold stare. "Remind your men what's at stake here. $15 million. I'm prepared to be generous with those who help me secure it." After Harrison left, Richard moved to his desk where newspaper clippings lay scattered across the polished surface. His own face stared back at him, the grieving father, the desperate searcher. The reporters had eaten it up. Millfield's golden. A boy struck by tragedy twice in 6 months. He picked up his phone again, dialing a number from memory. District Attorney Morris, he said smoothly when the call connected. Richard Miller. I was hoping for an update on Emily's case. Richard, the DA's voice was cautious. We've been over this. Without a body, without evidence of foul play. It's been 6 months, James, Richard interrupted. My wife is gone. Now my daughter... His voice broke convincingly. I need closure. A sigh from the other end. Look, I can fast-track the declaration of death in absentia. Usually takes 7 years, but given the circumstances, abandoned car, no financial activity, no contacts, I might push it through in 8 months. I'd be grateful, Richard said, and I never forget my friends during election season. After ending the call, Richard refilled his glass. 8 months. He could hold off his creditors that long, especially with the sympathy factor working for him. Now, the gambling debts, the failed investments, the embezzlement from his own family's company, all would disappear once he got his hands on Emily's inheritance from her mother. And with Sophie gone, it would all legally flow to him as Emily's husband. Except Sophie wasn't gone, and neither, it seemed, was Thunder, the one witness to what had really happened at the creek. Jack Henderson pulled his battered pickup truck into the parking lot of Millfield General Store. He'd changed into his seldom-worn suit jacket and added a hat pulled low over his face, not enough to raise suspicion, but sufficient to avoid immediate recognition. Inside, he methodically collected supplies. Bandages, antiseptic, children's vitamins, nothing that would raise eyebrows. Jack Henderson as I live and breathe. Jack froze, then turned to see Margaret Dawson bearing down on him with a smile. At 72, Margaret missed nothing that happened in Millfield. Margaret, he nodded politely. How are you? Better than poor Richard Miller, she said, lowering her voice. Have you heard? His little girl swept away in Willow Creek. And after losing his wife just months ago, Jack kept his expression neutral. A tragedy. They're saying a horse went missing too, one of his expensive thoroughbreds. Jack's hand tightened on the shopping cart. Is that so? Margaret nodded eagerly. Search parties everywhere, Miller's, offering a fortune for information. She peered at Jack's cart. Stocking up, I see. Just the usual supplies, Jack said casually. My neighbor Mary's staying with me for a few days. Pipe burst at her place. Mary Winters, the nurse? Margaret's eyes gleamed with fresh gossip potential. Never thought I'd see the day. It's not like that, Margaret. We're friends. If you say so, she sing-songed. Oh, did you hear about Emily Miller's sister? She's in town. Jack's heart skipped. Sister? Claire Lawson. Flew in from California when she heard about Sophie. Miller doesn't want her at the house. Bad blood. And there, from what I hear, Jack carefully maintained his composure. That's a shame. Margaret leaned closer. Between us, I hear she never believed the story about Emily's disappearance. Been saying all along that Miller had something to do with it. Has she now? Jack murmured, his mind racing. On his way out, a newspaper stand caught his eye. Sophie's. School portrait smiled from the front page, alongside a photo of Richard Miller looking appropriately devastated. The headline read, Search continues for Miller heiress. Heiress. The word stuck in Jack's mind as he drove to the Millfield Public Library. The elderly librarian, Mrs. Porter, barely looked up when he entered. Jack made his way to the archives section, pulling out editions from 6 months ago when Emily had disappeared. There it was, buried on page 3. Local businesswoman Eleanor Graham dies at 78. The article mentioned that Eleanor had left her entire estate to her only grandchild, Sophie Miller, to be held in trust until she turned 21, with her mother, Emily Graham Miller, as trustee. The estate was valued at approximately $15 million. Researching local history, Jack? He looked up to find Mrs. Porter standing beside him. Just catching up, he said smoothly. She said, unconvinced. Terrible business with the Miller girl. Everyone has theories too, I imagine. Jack probed gently. Mrs. Porter's eyes narrowed. Some do, not all of them flattering to Mr. Miller. Oh! She glanced around, then lowered her voice. Emily Miller used to volunteer here. Last time I saw her, about a week before she disappeared, she had a nasty bruise on her wrist, said she bumped into a door. Mrs. Porter's expression made it clear she hadn't believed that explanation. Did you tell the sheriff? I tried. But when a man has donated the funds for the new county courthouse, people tend to listen to his version of events. Back at the cabin, Mary met him at the door, her face tight with concern. Someone was here, she whispered, glancing toward Sophie's room. Thunder made a fuss, then stood guard at the door. When I looked outside, I saw footprints in the mud. Did you see who it was? Mary shook her head. But they left this. She held out a small carved wooden butterfly painted vivid blue. It was on the porch steps. Jack examined the carving. Tucked into a groove on the butterfly's underside was a slip of paper with a phone number. It's a message, he said quietly, from whoever's watching us. Jack dialed the number carefully. The line connected after one ring. Identify yourself, a woman's voice demanded. Jack Henderson, he replied. I have something that belongs to you. A pause. The butterfly is blue and hope seems lost. The voice was testing him. Jack thought quickly. Butterflies mean hope. That's what Mommy always says. Another pause. Is she safe? Yes, and healing. The horse too. A shaky exhale. Thank God. I saw it happen, but couldn't get there in time. Are you Claire? Jack asked. Yes, Emily's sister. And you're in danger, Mr. Henderson. Richard's men are looking for you. Someone recognized you at the store. They're on their way. Now, how long do we have? Minutes, maybe less. Take the fire road behind your property. I'll meet you at the old Peter's barn in 1 hour. The line went dead just as Thunder let out a warning neigh from outside. Jack sprang into action. Mary! Wake Sophie! We need to leave now! Through the front window, Jack spotted headlights turning onto his driveway. Back door! He instructed Mary, who carried a groggy Sophie wrapped in a blanket. The shed leads directly to the forest path. Thunder will follow. As if understanding, the black horse was already moving around to the back of the cabin, his dark coat blending with the evening shadows. The sound of car doors slamming reached them as Jack ushered Mary and Sophie through the shed and into the woods. Thunder followed silently, instinctively understanding the need for stealth. They slipped into the cover of the trees, just as flashlight beams began to sweep across the property. Jack led them along a nearly invisible path he'd walked thousands of times. Behind them, angry voices rose. Discovery was minutes away. The old Peter's barn, Jack whispered to Mary. 1 hour. Sophie clung to Mary, her eyes wide with fear, yet somehow trusting. She'd been through too much already, Jack thought. Grimly, no child deserved this. Thunder moved alongside them, occasionally nudging Sophie gently as if offering reassurance. The bond between child and horse had grown stronger each day. As they moved deeper into the forest, the flashlights and voices receded. Jack glanced back at his cabin one last time, the place he'd called home for decades. He didn't know if he'd ever see it again. What he did know was that somewhere in Millfield County, the truth about Emily Miller was waiting to be discovered. And he was now fully committed to finding it. The old Peter's barn loomed against the night sky, its weathered silhouette a darker shadow against the storm clouds. Jack led Mary and Sophie along the edge of the forest, pausing frequently to listen for pursuers. Thunder moved behind them, his steps unnaturally quiet for such a large animal. Rain had soaked them through, Sophie shivering despite the blanket wrapped around her small frame. Mary held her close, whispering reassurances as they approached. The abandoned structure. Wait here, Jack murmured, gesturing to a cluster of trees near the barn. I'll make sure it's safe. Mary nodded, crouching down with Sophie in her arms. Thunder positioned himself beside them, a living shield against the elements and any potential threats. Jack approached the barn cautiously, his years as a veterinarian having taught him to move quietly around nervous animals. The same skills, he found, worked well for avoiding dangerous men. The massive door was partially open, a sliver of faint light visible inside. Jack slipped through the gap, blinking as his eyes adjusted to the dimness. "Mr. Henderson?" A woman stepped from behind. A stack of mouldering hay bales. In her mid-30s, she had the same golden hair as Sophie, though cut short in a practical bob. Her eyes, the same crystal blue, were sharp, with intelligence and caution. "Claire Lawson?" Jack asked, though he already knew the answer. The resemblance to both Emily and Sophie was unmistakable. She nodded. "Where is she?" "Safe. With my friend Mary and Thunder." Claire's shoulders slumped slightly with relief. "Bring them in, quickly. Richard's men are scouring every inch of the county." Jack returned to the tree line, guiding Mary and Sophie inside. When Thunder followed, Claire's eyes widened. "So it's true," she whispered. "The horse really did save her." Sophie's face lit up at the sight of her aunt. "Aunt Claire!" She stretched out her arms, the first genuine excitement they'd seen from the child. Claire rushed forward, tears streaming down her face as she gathered Sophie into a fierce embrace. "Oh, my brave girl," she sobbed. "I thought I'd lost you too." For long moments they clung to each other. Jack and Mary exchanged glances, understanding. They were witnessing a reunion that neither had been certain would ever happen. Finally, Claire composed herself, though she kept one arm firmly around Sophie. "We don't have much time. Richard's security team has eyes everywhere. This barn isn't safe for long." "What about Emily?" Jack asked directly. "Is she alive?" Claire's expression tightened. "Yes, but barely when I found her 6 months ago." Mary gasped softly. Sophie's eyes grew wide, hope and fear mingling in her expression. Richard pushed her down the stairs. Claire continued, her voice flat with contained rage. "When she confronted him about the missing money, he left her for dead, then fabricated the story about her car being abandoned by the lake." "But you found her," Jack prompted. Claire nodded. "Emily had suspected something like this might happen. We had a system. If she didn't check in with me for 3 days, I was to come immediately but tell no one. I found her half-conscious in that house. Richard had already started telling people she was missing. Why not go to the police?" Mary asked. Claire's laugh was bitter. "With what proof? Emily's injuries could have been from a fall, and Richard owns half the sheriff's department. By the time I got there, he'd already established his story." She stroked Sophie's hair. "Emily knew the only way to survive and to protect Sophie was to disappear completely." "Where is she now?" Jack asked. "Safe, at the Blue Butterfly House," Claire replied. "It's what we called our grandmother's old summer cottage. It's where we used to catch blue morpho butterflies as children. No one knows Emily's there. The property is still in our grandmother's name. Not even Richard knows it exists." "What happened after Emily disappeared?" Mary asked gently. Claire's face darkened. "Richard accelerated his plans. With Emily gone, he needed Sophie gone too, to access the trust fund Emily's mother left." Her arms tightened around Sophie. "He first tried making it look like an accident, the incident that put her in the wheelchair." Jack and Mary both looked at Sophie, horror dawning as they realized the truth. "He pushed me off the balcony," Sophie whispered, speaking more words. "At once than they'd heard from her. Said it was our secret game, that I flew like a butterfly." Tears filled her eyes. "But butterflies don't break when they land." Jack felt rage building in his chest, unlike anything he'd experienced before. Mary's face had gone white with shock and fury. "The doctors believed his story about her falling while playing," Claire continued, her voice trembling. "But when Sophie started physical therapy and showing signs of recovery, he must have decided a more permanent solution was needed." "The creek," Jack said grimly. Claire nodded. "I'd been watching the house, trying to find a way to get Sophie out safely. I followed when he took her that day, but I was too far behind. By the time I reached the creek," her voice broke. "If it hadn't been for Thunder." The horse nickered softly, as if acknowledging his role. "But how did you find us?" Mary asked. "I tracked Thunder's hoofprints," Claire explained. "I knew if I found the horse, I'd find Sophie. I've been watching." Your cabin, making sure Richard's men didn't discover you first. We can't stay here, Jack said, looking toward the barn door. Richard's men were at my cabin. They'll expand their search. Claire nodded. I have a plan. My rental car is hidden a quarter-mile south. We'll drive to the bus station in Harrisville. From there, we can reach the Blue Butterfly House without being traced. What about Thunder? Sophie asked, fear clouding her eyes at the thought of leaving her savior. Claire hesitated. Oh, we can't take a horse on a bus, sweetheart. Then I'm not going, Sophie declared with surprising firmness. Thunder saved me. I won't leave him for Daddy to find. Jack knelt beside Sophie. What if Thunder meets us there? I know these woods. Better than anyone. I could lead him cross-country. That's at least 30 miles, Mary objected. Your knee, I'll manage, Jack interrupted. We can't risk Sophie's safety by trying to transport a horse this distinctive. Too many eyes watching. Claire checked her watch. The last bus leaves at midnight. We have 2 hours to get Sophie there safely. She looked at Jack. Are you sure about this? Jack nodded. I'll need a map to the Blue Butterfly House. Claire quickly sketched directions on a scrap of paper. It's remote, no proper address. Follow Copper Creek north until you reach the old mining bridge. The cottage is a half-mile east, hidden in a stand of birch trees. Sophie reached out, touching Thunder's muzzle. You'll come find me, right? The horse lowered his great head, nuzzling her gently. I'll bring him to you, Jack promised. You have my word. Mary studied Jack's face. I should go with you. The terrain, your knee... No, Jack said firmly. Sophie needs you, your medical knowledge. I'll be fine. A sudden noise outside silenced them all. Thunder's ears pricked forward, his body tensing. Claire moved to a small window, peering out cautiously. Headlights on the access road. Her voice was tight with fear. We need to move now. With practiced efficiency born of nursing emergencies, Mary gathered Sophie into her arms. Claire collected their few belongings, distributing them into backpacks. Jack knelt before Sophie once more. Be brave, little one. I'll see you soon with Thunder. Sophie's small hand touched his weathered cheek. Promise? Cross my heart. He replied solemnly. With a final glance at Thunder, Jack handed Mary a small pocket knife, just in case. The women slipped out the back of the barn, disappearing into the darkness of the surrounding woods. Jack watched until he could no longer see them, then turned to Thunder. Well, big fellow, he said quietly, looks like it's just you and me now. Outside, the beams of flashlights began to sweep across the field, approaching the barn. Jack's hand rested on Thunder's neck, feeling the powerful muscles tense beneath the damp coat. We can't outrun them, he murmured, but we can outthink them. For the women and Sophie, the journey was just beginning. For Jack and Thunder, a different path lay ahead, one that would test both man and horse to their limits. And somewhere in the night, Richard Miller's fury was building as his carefully constructed plans continued to unravel. The hunt was intensifying. The stakes, Sophie's life, Emily's survival, $15 million, and justice long denied, had never been higher. The storm above them rumbled ominously, as if nature itself was acknowledging the human drama unfolding. Beneath its gaze, Jack pressed his back against the barn wall, Thunder standing absolutely still beside him. The flashlight beams swept closer, accompanied by the crackle of radios and the heavy tread of boots through wet grass. Check the barn, a gruff voice commanded. Williams, circle around back. Jack's mind raced. They couldn't run, not with Thunder's distinctive size and coloring. They couldn't hide. The barn offered few concealing spaces large enough for a horse. He needed a distraction. His fingers closed around a rusted horseshoe, a relic from the barn's working days. With practiced aim, honed from years of treating skittish animals from a distance, Jack hurled it far across the field. It landed with a satisfying thunk in a puddle. What was that? One of the flashlights swiveled toward the sound. Over there, movement by the creek. Two of the searchers peeled off, heading toward the distraction. Jack leaned close to Thunder's ear. When I say run, head straight for the apple orchard, he whispered. Fast as you can. The horse's ears flicked back, capturing his words. Jack hadn't treated animals for 40 years without learning a thing or two about communicating with them. The remaining man approached the barn door, flashlight beams swimming through the cracks in the aged wood. Jack tensed, waiting for the precise moment. The door creaked open. "Now!" Jack hissed, slapping Thunder's flank. The massive horse exploded forward, bursting through the door with Jack hanging onto his mane. The man shouted in surprise, tumbling backward as nearly a ton of muscle and bone charged past him. Thunder galloped across the open ground, Jack clinging to his back, knees screaming in protest at the awkward position. Behind them, shouts and confusion erupted. "It's the horse, and someone's with him. Get the vehicles." Jack guided Thunder toward the dense apple orchard that bordered the eastern edge of the property. The trees would provide cover and slow any pursuing vehicles. The orchard welcomed them with low-hanging branches that whipped at Jack's face. He ducked lower, pressing himself against Thunder's neck as they wove through the trees. "Steady, boy," he murmured. "Nice and easy now." They emerged on the far side of the orchard, the sound of engines growing fainter behind them. Jack oriented, himself using the North Star, guiding Thunder toward Copper Creek. If they could reach the water, they could use it to mask their trail. Miles away, Claire's rental car sped down back roads, Mary in the passenger seat with Sophie huddled between them. "Are they still behind us?" Claire asked, eyes flicking to the rearview mirror. Mary turned, peering through the rain-streaked rear. Window? I don't see headlights anymore. I think we lost them at the junction. Sophie stared straight ahead, her small face set in determination despite the tears that occasionally escaped. "Will Jack and Thunder be okay?" "They'll be fine," Mary assured her, though her own heart was heavy with worry. "Jack knows these woods better than anyone. And Thunder is the strongest, smartest horse in the world," Sophie added, with childlike certainty. Claire squeezed her niece's hand. "That's right. Now, we need to focus on getting you to your mother." Sophie's eyes widened. "Mommy's really alive?" "Yes, sweetheart. She's been waiting for you, getting stronger every day." Fresh tears spilled down Sophie's cheeks. "I knew it. I knew she wouldn't leave me." Claire's jaw tightened. "Never. Your mother would never leave you willingly." They reached the Harrisville bus station with 20 minutes to spare. Claire parked behind a convenience store 2 blocks away. "Wait here," she instructed, handing Mary a bus ticket. "I need to make sure the station is clear." Mary nodded, pulling Sophie closer. "Be careful." Claire slipped into the rainy night, moving with the cautious efficiency of someone who had spent months watching for danger. The bus station was nearly empty at this late hour. A single attendant dozed behind the ticket counter while an elderly couple huddled on a bench, surrounded by luggage. No sign of Richard's men. Claire returned to the car. "It seems safe. The midnight bus to Cumberland is boarding in 10 minutes. From there, we catch the local to Pinewood. Then it's a 5-mile walk to the cottage." Mary helped Sophie from the car, supporting her as the child used her arms to compensate for her weakened legs. The physical therapy she'd begun before Richard's final attempt on her life had helped, but the journey was taking its toll. "I can carry you," Mary offered. Sophie shook her head stubbornly. "I can do it. Mommy says I'm strong." Pride swelled in Mary's chest at the child's resilience. After all Sophie had endured, her mother's disappearance, her father's betrayal, her injuries, the attempted drowning, she still possessed an indomitable spirit. They boarded the bus without incident, finding seats at the back where Sophie could lie across their laps. As the engine rumbled to life, Claire's phone vibrated with an incoming text. "Richard knows," she whispered, showing Mary the message from her contact in the sheriff's office. "He's setting up roadblocks on all major highways leading out of the county." "This bus route?" Mary asked, her voice tight. "Not listed," Claire replied. "It's a local service, not on the main transit maps." Small blessing. Sophie had finally drifted to sleep, exhaustion claiming her despite the circumstances. Mary brushed damp curls from the child's forehead. "What happens when we reach the Blue Butterfly House?" she asked quietly. Claire's expression hardened. "We were planning to leave the country. Emily has connections in Costa Rica, a place where Richard couldn't find them." She looked down at her sleeping niece. "But now, With what Richard has done, attempted murder changes things. You're going to fight, Mary realized. We have to. Box 742 contains evidence, financial records, medical reports, Emily's testimony, photographs of her injuries. Enough to bring him down if we can get it safely to the right people. The right people being an FBI agent who's been investigating Richard's Company for Financial Crimes. Emily contacted him before her disappearance, but didn't have enough proof. Now we do. The bus pulled away from the station, wipers fighting a losing battle against the strengthening rain. Behind them, Millfield County and its secrets receded into the darkness. Meanwhile, Jack and Thunder had reached Copper Creek, its waters swollen. And from the ongoing storm, Jack slid from Thunder's back, his legs nearly buckling as he landed. "You're doing great, boy," he panted, patting the horse's heaving flank. "Let's follow the creek for a while, wash away our scent." Thunder nudged Jack's shoulder, almost supportively. The bond between them had strengthened with each passing mile, a partnership forged in their shared purpose of protecting Sophie. Jack pulled out Claire's hastily drawn map, shielding it from the rain as best he could. The Blue Butterfly House was still a good 20 miles north, following the creek until it intersected with the old mining bridge. In the distance, the faint sound of engines growled, ATVs by the sound of them. Richard's men weren't giving up easily. "No rest for us yet," Jack muttered, pulling himself back onto Thunder with effort. His knee screamed in protest, decades old. Injury flaring with vengeance. "Forward, friend, Sophie's waiting." As Thunder began moving again, Jack turned his face to the rain, letting it wash away the grimace of pain. 20 miles. They could make it. They had to make it. For Sophie's sake, for justice, for the truth that had remained buried too long in Millfield County. Behind them, the hunters were closing in. Ahead, an uncertain reunion and the desperate hope of safety. And somewhere between, the fate of a little girl and the horse who had become her unlikely guardian angel hung in the balance. 3 days later, autumn sun rose over Millfield County, painting the changing leaves in brilliant golds and crimsons. The storm had passed, leaving behind clear skies that belied the darkness still unfolding beneath them. In the center of Millfield, banners stretched across Main Street announcing the annual Harvest Festival. For generations, the first Saturday in October had been a celebration of community and abundance, a day when the social hierarchies temporarily dissolved amid apple bobbing and pie contests. Richard Miller stood on the steps of Town Hall, his handsome face arranged in an expression of gratitude tinged with grief. Camera flashes punctuated his speech. "I want to thank everyone for their continued support in the search for my daughter," he said, voice catching just enough to appear genuine. "In honor of Sophie, I've decided the festival should proceed as planned. She always loved the hay rides," the crowd murmured sympathetically. Behind Richard, banners displayed Sophie's school portrait alongside the words, "Bring her home," and the promised reward, now increased to $100,000. Harrison watched from the side of the stage, his face impassive. When Richard concluded his remarks to applause, the security chief approached. "Sir, we've had a possible sighting near Cumberland." Richard's public smile vanished the moment they were alone. "And?" Bus station security camera caught a woman with a child matching Sophie's description. "They boarded the midnight bus 3 nights ago." "Why am I just hearing about this now?" Richard snarled. "The station manager just came forward, recognized Sophie from the news." Richard paced, mind calculating rapidly. Cumberland, that's north. Where exactly would they be heading? His eyes narrowed. The Graham property. Harrison waited for clarification. Emily's mother owned land up there, some worthless acreage near the old mines. Richard had dismissed it when reviewing Eleanor Graham's assets, focusing instead on the investment portfolio. "Find it! Now!" As Harrison moved to comply, Richard added, "And Harrison? No witnesses this time, no survivors. I want every loose end permanently tied off." The Blue Butterfly House wasn't blue at all. The small cottage, nestled among birch trees, wore weathered grey cedar shingles, its only splash of color the faded blue door. But mounted beside that door was a carved wooden butterfly, painted in brilliant azure, a twin to the one Claire had left at Jack's cabin. Inside, Emily Miller sat at the kitchen table, hands wrapped around a mug of tea gone cold. 6 months in, hiding had thinned her frame, and the injuries from her fall had left lingering pain that etched lines around her eyes. But those eyes, crystal blue like her daughter's, remained sharp with intelligence and determination. The sound of tires on gravel brought her to the window. When she recognized Claire's rental car, she flung open the door, heart pounding. Mary emerged first, helping a small figure from the back seat. Emily's breath caught in her throat. "Sophie," she whispered, then louder. "Sophie!" Sophie's head whipped around at the sound of her mother's voice. "Mommy! Mommy!" With strength that surprised even her, Sophie pushed away from Mary, dragging her legs forward in a lurching run, arms outstretched. Emily raced down the porch steps, tears streaming unchecked down her face. They collided in the yard, Emily dropping to her knees to gather her daughter into a desperate embrace. "My baby, my beautiful baby," Emily sobbed, covering Sophie's face with kisses, touching her hair, her shoulders, her cheeks, as if reassuring herself that this was real. "I'm here! Mommy's here!" Sophie clung to her mother with the fierce grip of a child who'd feared she'd never feel these arms around her again. "I knew you weren't gone. I knew it." Finally, Emily looked up, noticing Sophie's labored movements. "Your legs, what happened?" "Daddy pushed me," Sophie said simply, "like he pushed you, but I'm getting better. Mary helps me exercise." Fury darkened Emily's face as she looked to Claire for confirmation. "It's true," Claire said. "He accelerated his plans after you disappeared. When the physical therapy started showing progress, he tried to drown her in Willow Creek." Emily's face went white with horror. "He what?" "Thunder saved me," Sophie said, her face brightening. "He jumped in the water and carried me out. He's my friend now. Jack is bringing him here." Emily looked bewildered, trying to process this information. "It's a long story," Mary said gently, introducing herself. "But your daughter was saved by a very special horse and found by people who recognized she needed protection." Inside the cottage, Emily examined Sophie's legs with gentle hands, her nursing background allowing her to assess the injury professionally despite her emotional turmoil. "The surgical scars are healing well," she noted, voice tight. "With continued therapy, she might regain most of her function." "That's what I thought too," Mary agreed. "But we'll need resources, specialized equipment. First, we need Richard." "Stopped!" Claire interrupted. "Until then, none of us are safe." Emily's expression hardened. "The bank box, did you get it?" Claire shook her head. "Not yet. We came straight here after getting off the bus in Pinewood. I didn't want to risk taking Sophie anywhere near Millfield." "What's in it?" Mary asked. Emily and Claire exchanged glances. "Everything," Emily said simply. "Financial records showing Richard embezzled millions from his family's company. Medical records documenting my accidents, my testimony about his threats, and most importantly, evidence that he attempted to access Sophie's trust fund through forged documents even before I disappeared. With that evidence," Claire added, "the FBI can move against him. Agent Donnelly has been building a case for months, but needed concrete proof." Mary's nursing practicality asserted itself. "So we need to access the box, deliver the evidence, and then get all of you somewhere safe until Richard is arrested." "Exactly," Emily confirmed. "But we need the key, which I hid in the blue butterfly," Sophie finished proudly. Claire reached into her pocket, pulling out the wooden carving. With deft fingers, she worked a hidden catch, and the butterfly split open to reveal a small, safe deposit box key. "The festival?" Emily said suddenly. "It's this weekend." Claire checked her phone. "Today, actually." "Perfect," Emily nodded. "The bank will be open for limited hours during the festival. Everyone in town will be distracted. Claire, you could—" "I can't," Claire interrupted. "Richard's men know I'm in town. They've been watching me at the Millfield Inn." A heavy silence fell over the room. "I'll go," Mary offered. "Richard doesn't know me. I'm just another face in the crowd." "It's too dangerous," Emily protested. "I've spent my life in emergency rooms," Mary replied with quiet confidence. "Pressure doesn't rattle me. And frankly, after seeing what that man did to Sophie, I'd walk through fire to help put him away." Emily studied Mary's determined face, then nodded slowly. "You'll need Amanda's help. She's my cousin, works as a senior teller at the bank. Box 742 is registered in my grandmother's name, Eleanor Graham. Amanda can verify you're authorized to access it. How will she know to trust me?" "The password is Mariposa," Emily explained, "and you'll have the key with the butterfly mark. Amanda will understand." Mary slipped the key into her pocket, a tangible weight of responsibility. "I should leave now to reach Millfield by noon. The festival will be in full swing by then." As Mary prepared to leave, Sophie tugged at her hand. "Will you find Jack and Thunder 2? Tell them where we are?" Mary crouched to Sophie's level. "I'll do my very best, sweetheart. I promise." The Harvest Festival transformed Millfield's town square into a kaleidoscope of autumn colors. Vendors lined cobblestone streets, with stalls selling everything from hand-knitted scarves to fresh-pressed apple cider. Children darted between hay bales and cornstalk decorations, while a local band played folk tunes from a wooden stage. Mary navigated through the crowds, her heart hammering against her ribs despite her outward calm. The butterfly key felt impossibly heavy in her pocket. With each step toward First Millfield Bank, she mentally rehearsed her approach. Find Amanda. Say Mariposa. Access box 742. Leave unnoticed. The bank stood at the corner of Main and Elm, its dignified brick facade adorned with tasteful harvest decorations. A sign in the window announced, "Special festival hours 10 a.m. 2 p.m. Mary checked her watch. 11:45. The lunch rush would be starting soon, providing additional cover as people ducked into the bank during festival activities. Inside, cool air and hushed tones replaced the festive atmosphere outside. 3 tellers worked the counter, serving a modest line of customers. Mary scanned name tags, spotting Amanda on a middle-aged woman with auburn hair pulled into a neat bun. Joining the line, Mary kept her head down, acutely aware of the security cameras mounted in each corner. When her turn came, she approached Amanda's window with practiced casualness. "Good morning," Mary smiled. "I need to access a safe deposit box, please." Amanda nodded professionally. "Certainly. Do you have your key and account information?" Mary leaned slightly forward. "Box 742. Eleanor Graham, Mariposa." Amanda's eyes widened almost imperceptibly, but her voice remained steady. "Of course. I'll need to see some identification." Mary produced her driver's license, aware this was part of the protocol. Amanda examined it, then pressed a button beneath her counter. "My colleague will assist you in the vault room. Please follow her." A younger woman appeared, guiding Mary through a side door into a small anteroom lined with metal boxes. Box 742 was at eye level. With steady hands that belied her nervous state, Mary inserted the butterfly key alongside the bank's master key. The box slid open to reveal a thick manila envelope sealed with blue wax pressed with a butterfly emblem. Mary slipped it into her purse without examining the contents. "Thank you," she murmured to the attendant, who nodded and escorted her back to the main floor. As Mary turned to leave, the bank's front doors swung open. Harrison, Richard's security chief, entered flanked by 2 men in suits. Mary's blood turned to ice. She hadn't met him personally, but Jack had described him from the search party at the barn. Acting on instinct, Mary turned toward the water fountain, bending to take a drink while shielding her face. Harrison scanned the bank lobby before approaching a teller, not Amanda, thankfully, and engaging in conversation. Amanda caught Mary's eye from her station, giving an almost imperceptible nod toward a side exit marked "Employees Only." Mary moved casually in that direction, slipping through the door as if she belonged. The hallway led to a back alley where deliveries were made. Heart-pounding, she emerged into the narrow passage between buildings. Freedom was 30 feet away when a voice called out behind her. "Ma'am? Excuse me, ma'am." Mary froze, then slowly turned. A young security guard stood in the doorway, holding out a small object. "You dropped this," he said, extending her car keys, which must have fallen from her pocket. "Thank you," Mary managed, taking the keys with what she hoped was a normal smile. "Clumsy of me." The guard nodded, returning inside. Mary exhaled shakily, then hurried toward the town square, the envelope burning against her side like a brand. Meanwhile, Jack and Thunder had made their circuitous approach to Millfield, keeping to the wooded hills that bordered the eastern edge of town. Jack's body ached with exhaustion. 3 days of travel, limited food, and the constant stress of evading Richard's search parties had taken their toll. "Almost there, boy," Jack murmured to Thunder, who, despite his own fatigue, maintained a steady pace. From their elevated position, they could see the festival spread below like a miniature diorama. Jack focused on the bank, watching as Mary exited the alley behind it. Even from this distance, something in her hurried gait communicated success. "She did it," Jack whispered to Thunder. "Now we need to get her safely back to Emily and Sophie." They descended toward the road that led north out of town, Jack calculating they could intercept Mary before she reached the main highway. But as they emerged from the tree line, the sound of approaching vehicles made them freeze. 3 black SUVs sped toward Millfield from the north, the direction of the Blue Butterfly House. Jack's heart sank. Richard's men had found the cottage. "Change of plans," he told Thunder, turning the horse toward town. They needed to warn Mary immediately. In the festival crowd, Mary moved with deliberate casualness, fighting the urge to run. The envelope contained everything needed to bring Richard down, but only if she could get it safely to the FBI contact Claire had mentioned. She reached her car, parked on a side street, and slid behind the wheel. As she started the engine, movement in her rearview mirror caught her attention. A familiar figure on horseback emerged from between buildings. "Jack," she breathed, relief washing over her. She pulled the car over, waving through the window. Jack urged Thunder alongside, bending low to speak through her window. Richard's men, heading north. 3 vehicles. They must have found the cottage. The blood drained from Mary's face. "Emily and Sophie—" "We need to warn them," Jack interrupted. "Did you get what you came for?" Mary patted her purse. "Everything. But my car's too conspicuous now. They'll be watching the roads." Jack's mind raced through options. The festival train. Mary looked confused. Every year they run the old mining train for the festival, takes tourists up to view the fall colors. It passes within a mile of the cottage. When does it leave? Jack checked the town clock. 20 minutes from the old depot. Without hesitation, Mary grabbed her purse and abandoned the car. "Let's go." "Not me." Jack shook his head. "I'll create a distraction. Take Thunder, he knows the way. He'll get you there faster than any train." "Jack, no. There's no time to argue. Richard's men are searching for a horse and an old man. Let them find me. Thunder will protect you and lead you to Sophie." The depth of Jack's sacrifice wasn't lost on Mary. After decades of quiet solitude, he was willingly making himself a target. To protect a child he'd known less than a week. "I'll come back for you," Mary promised, tears threatening. Jack helped her onto Thunder's back. "Head west out of town, then north along Copper Creek. The horse knows the way from there." Mary leaned down, impulsively kissing Jack's weathered cheek. "Be careful, you stubborn old vet." A ghost of a smile crossed Jack's tired face. "Give my best to Sophie." With that, Jack slapped Thunder's flank, sending the great horse galloping down the alley away from the festival grounds. Then, squaring his shoulders, he limped purposefully toward the town square, directly into the path of Harrison and his men, who had emerged from the bank. Jack didn't have to fake his exhaustion or the dirt on his clothes. He simply made himself visible, then ducked into the pie-judging tent as if trying to hide. The reaction was immediate. Harrison spotted him, gesturing sharply to his companions. Within moments, they had surrounded the tent, cutting off exits. "There he is!" Harrison shouted, pointing directly at Jack, "the man who took Sophie Miller." Gasps rippled through the festival crowd. Jack found himself suddenly the center of unwanted attention as Harrison and his men closed in. "I didn't take anyone," Jack said loudly, wanting witnesses to hear. "I saved a child from drowning after her father pushed her into Willow Creek." Murmurs spread through the gathering crowd. This wasn't part of Harrison's plan. Public accusations against his employer. "This man is delusional," Harrison announced, grabbing Jack's arm roughly. "He's been living alone in the woods too long. Mr. Miller is offering a reward for information about his daughter." "Is that what he calls attempted murder now?" Jack challenged, his voice carrying to the crowd. "Ask yourselves why a 5-year-old girl was at Willow Creek alone with her father. No life jacket, no witnesses." Someone in the crowd shouted, "Let him speak." Harrison's face darkened. He nodded to his men, who closed ranks around Jack, hustling him toward a waiting SUV parked at the edge of the square. "You're interfering with a police matter," Harrison growled, for the benefit of onlookers as they forced Jack into the vehicle. Once the doors closed, Harrison's pretense of civility vanished. A hard punch to Jack's ribs doubled him over, gasping for breath. "Where is the girl?" Harrison demanded. Jack wheezed through the pain. "Safe from Richard. That's all that matters." Another blow, this time to his face. Jack tasted blood. "The boss wants to talk to you personally," Harrison said, signaling the driver to head toward the Miller estate. Meanwhile, Thunder galloped northward with Mary clinging to his mane. The great horse seemed to understand the urgency of their mission, conserving his strength on flat terrain, then pushing hard up hills. Mary held tight to the envelope containing the evidence, replaying Jack's instructions in her mind. West out of town, then north along Copper Creek. The Blue Butterfly House was near the old mining bridge. As they crested a ridge, Mary spotted smoke rising in the distance, exactly where the cottage should be. Her heart lurched painfully in her chest. "Faster," she urged, though Thunder was already running at his limit. They reached the edge of a clearing, and Mary pulled Thunder to a stop behind the cover of trees. The Blue Butterfly House was intact, but a storage shed behind it was ablaze, sending thick black smoke skyward. 2 black SUVs were parked haphazardly in the front yard. 4 men in tactical gear searched the perimeter of the property, weapons drawn. Through the cottage window, Mary could see movement, someone being forced to sit in a chair. "Emily," she whispered, her blood running cold. But where was Sophie and Claire? Thunder pawed the ground nervously, sensing Mary's distress. She stroked his neck, thinking frantically. "We need a distraction," she murmured, remembering how Jack had created one in town. But what could one nurse and an exhausted horse do against armed men? The answer came from an unexpected direction. A whistle, soft but distinct, sounded from the trees to her right. Mary turned to see Claire crouched in the underbrush, motioning urgently. Mary guided Thunder carefully through the trees until they reached Claire's hiding place. The woman's face was streaked with dirt, and a cut above her eyebrow bled sluggishly. "Thank God," Claire breathed. "They came out of nowhere. Emily told me to run with Sophie while she drew them away." "Where is Sophie?" Mary asked desperately. Claire pointed deeper into the forest, hidden in a hollow tree about 100 yards that way. "I was coming back to help Emily when I saw you." "How many men inside?" 2, plus their leader, tall man, military bearing. "Harrison," Mary confirmed. "Jack created a distraction in town so I could escape with this." She patted the envelope. "It's all the evidence we need to bring Richard down, but it won't matter if they kill Emily." Claire's eyes hardened with determination. "I have an idea. They're looking for Sophie and me. If they see us running, they'll chase us." "That's suicide," Mary protested. "Not if we have Thunder," Claire said, looking at the horse with newfound respect. "From what Sophie told me, he's faster than any man on foot," Mary understood immediately. "A decoy, but you'll need to ride him. I'll get Sophie while they're distracted, then circle back for Emily." "I've only hidden for 6 months," Claire said. Grimly, "It's time I did something." They worked quickly, transferring the envelope to Mary's pocket. Claire mounted Thunder awkwardly. She clearly wasn't experienced with horses, but Thunder seemed to sense her intentions, standing patiently until she was settled. "Head east when you break cover," Mary instructed. "The terrain is rougher that way. It'll slow them down. Once you've drawn them far enough away, circle back to the old mining bridge. We'll meet you there." Claire nodded, her face resolute despite her fear. "Be careful. These men aren't just hired muscle. They're killers." With that, she urged Thunder toward the edge of the trees, took a deep breath, and broke cover. The effect was immediate. "There!" one of the men shouted. "It's her and the horse!" As planned, the men outside immediately gave chase, running for their vehicles. Mary waited until they had driven away in pursuit before moving toward the cabin, praying the distraction had drawn away all of Richard's men. Inside the cottage, Emily sat bound to a kitchen chair, a bruise darkening her left cheekbone. A single guard stood watch while Harrison interrogated her. "Where is your daughter?" Harrison demanded, his voice carrying through the open window. Emily's response was defiant. "Somewhere you'll never find her." The crack of Harrison's hand across her face made Mary wince. She needed to get Sophie first, then come back for Emily. Staying low, she crept back into the trees, following Claire's directions to the hollow tree. She found it easily enough, an ancient oak with a cavity near its base, just large enough for a small child to squeeze into. Mary knelt beside it. "Sophie?" she whispered. "It's Mary. You can come." "Out now?" No response. Mary's heart began to race. Had Richard's men found her already? "Sophie, sweetheart, it's safe now." A small movement from within the hollow caught her eye. Sophie's pale face appeared, streaked with tears and dirt. "They hurt Mommy," she whispered, her voice broken with fear. "I know, honey, but we're going to help her. I need you to be brave." For just a little longer. It was a bluff. Emily was still in the tunnel, but it had the desired effect. Richard's composure shattered. "The bank box," he whispered, then to Harrison. "The bank box. She must have gotten to it." He grabbed Mary's arm, twisting painfully. "Where is it? Where's the evidence?" "Gone," Mary said, grimacing through the pain. "Just like your freedom. We'll be soon." Richard's face reddened with fury. "Search her," he ordered Harrison. Outside, hidden beneath the rhododendron, Sophie watched through the window as the men surrounded Mary. Tears streamed down her face, but she remained silent, remembering Mary's instructions to stay hidden. A hand touched her shoulder gently. Sophie nearly screamed before recognizing her mother's face. "Shh," Emily whispered, gathering Sophie into her arms. "We need to be very quiet. They're hurting Mary," Sophie whimpered. "I know, sweetheart, but Mary is very brave, and she's helping." "Who's escape?" Emily's voice broke slightly. "We need to get to the stream and then to the mining bridge where Aunt Claire and Thunder are waiting." Sophie clung to her mother as Emily carried her through the woods, moving as quietly as possible. The sounds of the cottage, men shouting, things breaking, faded behind them. They reached the stream where the tunnel emerged, concealed by thick shrubbery. Emily set Sophie down for a moment, catching her breath. "What about Jack?" Sophie asked. Her small face creased with worry. "And Mary?" Emily's heart twisted with guilt. These people had risked everything for her daughter. "We'll save them too, I promise. But first, we need to get this evidence to the FBI." She patted the envelope Mary had given her. Inside was everything needed to destroy Richard. Bank statements showing embezzlement, medical records documenting Emily's suspicious injuries, Sophie's hospital records with inconsistencies in Richard's story, and Emily's sworn testimony about his attempts to access Sophie's trust fund. As they approached the mining bridge, a familiar whinny sounded from the trees. "Thunder!" Sophie called out, her voice joyful despite everything. The great black horse emerged from the cover of pines, Claire clinging to his back. Thunder trotted directly to Sophie, lowering his head to nuzzle her hair with surprising gentleness. Claire dismounted awkwardly, rushing to embrace her sister and niece. "Thank God," she breathed. "When the men started chasing us, I was so afraid." "Mary," Created a distraction, Emily explained, her voice tight with emotion. She's still at the cottage and Jack at the Miller estate, according to what we overheard, Claire finished grimly. But we have the evidence now. We can end this. Emily nodded, straightening her shoulders. The FBI agent, Donnelly, is staying at the Cumberland Hotel. It's 10 miles north. Thunder nickered softly, moving to stand beside Sophie. The little girl reached up, stroking his muzzle. Thunder will help, she said with absolute certainty. 6 months later, snow blanketed the Blue Butterfly house. Inside, a Christmas tree sparkled with handmade ornaments, many in the shape of blue butterflies. Emily sat on the sofa, watching Sophie take careful steps with her walker. The physical therapy was working. Each day brought new progress. "Look, Mummy," Sophie called out, reaching the kitchen doorway without pausing to rest. "I did it!" "You certainly did," Emily beamed, pride swelling in her chest. "Jack will be so impressed when he sees you tomorrow." Mary entered from the kitchen, carrying a tray of hot chocolate. "Did I hear someone reached her goal today?" she asked, smiling warmly at Sophie. Jack followed behind with a plate of cookies. At 65, he moved a bit more slowly now, the aftermath of Richard's interrogation having left its mark, but his eyes remained kind and his spirit unbroken. "Just in time for Christmas," he remarked, setting the cookies on the coffee table. "Santa will be pleased," Sophie giggled, making her way back to the sofa with determined steps. Outside, through the window, they could see Thunder in his new shelter, built specially to keep him close to the house. The horse had refused to be stabled away from Sophie, forming a bond that even the FBI agents who'd helped rescue them had found remarkable. Claire arrived last, stamping snow from her boots. "Mail's here," she announced, waving an official-looking envelope. "From the DA's office." Emily took it with steady hands. The trial had concluded 3 months ago. Richard and Harrison both sentenced to lengthy prison terms for attempted murder, embezzlement, fraud, and a host of other charges. Emily had testified, her voice never wavering as she recounted years of abuse and manipulation. "It's confirmation of the trust fund transfer," she announced after reading the letter. "Sophie's inheritance is officially secured in a new trust, with Claire and me as co-trustees." "And Richard?" Mary asked quietly. "Appeal denied," Emily replied, satisfaction evident in her voice. "He'll serve his full sentence." Jack raised his mug in a toast. "To justice." "To Thunder," Sophie added solemnly. "The best horse in the world." "To new beginnings," Claire contributed. Mary touched her mug to theirs. "To family, the ones we're born with and the ones we find." Emily looked around at the unlikely family they had formed. Her sister Claire, the retired veterinarian Jack, the compassionate nurse Mary, her daughter Sophie, and even Thunder, visible through the window standing sentinel in the snow. From tragedy had come connection. From cruelty had come kindness. From betrayal had come trust. Outside, Christmas lights twinkled on the porch rail. Beside the blue door, the carved butterfly gleamed with fresh paint, a symbol of hope and revival, of protection and transformation. Sophie leaned against her mother, content and safe at last. "Butterflies mean hope," she whispered, repeating the words that had sustained them through their darkest days. Emily kissed the top of her daughter's head. "And hope never dies." 2 years had passed since justice was served. Sophie, now 7, no longer needed her walker, though she still limped slightly when tired. The physical therapist had called her recovery remarkable, a testament to her spirit as much as to the intensive therapy. But nightmares still plagued her. Tonight was particularly bad. "No! Daddy, please!" Sophie's scream tore through the quiet. Your house, jolting Emily from sleep. She raced to her daughter's room, finding Sophie thrashing against tangled sheets, her face contorted in terror. Emily gathered the trembling child into her arms. "It's okay, baby. You're safe. Daddy can't hurt you anymore." Sophie's eyes flew open, wild with fear. "He was there, at the creek. Thunder couldn't find me." Emily rocked her gently, heart breaking. anew at her daughter's continued suffering. The trauma therapist had warned them healing would take time, perhaps years. Some wounds left scars too deep to ever fully fade. Outside, Thunder's agitated whinnying reached them through the open window. The horse somehow always sensed Sophie's distress, as if their connection transcended ordinary understanding. "Listen," Emily whispered. "Thunder knows you're safe. He's telling you so." Sophie's breathing gradually steadied. "Can I see him?" Despite the late hour, Emily nodded. She wrapped Sophie in a blanket and carried her downstairs, past where Mary slept on the pull-out couch during her weekend visits. The nurse had never returned to her cottage, instead dividing her time between the Blue Butterfly House and part-time work at Cumberland Hospital. She and Jack had become family. The aunt and Uncle Sophie had gained through trauma and rescue. The night air was cool against their skin as Emily carried Sophie to Thunder's shelter. The magnificent horse stood alert, ears pricked forward. He nickered softly as Sophie reached out to touch his velvet muzzle. "I had the bad dream again," Sophie confided, pressing her forehead against Thunder's neck. Emily watched the connection between child and horse with wonder, still fresh after 2 years. Thunder had continued to shower Sophie with gentle protectiveness, as if remembering the moment in the creek that had bound their fates together. "What does the therapist say to remember when the dreams come?" Emily prompted gently. Sophie straightened a little. "That dreams can't hurt me, that Daddy is in prison, that I'm surrounded by people who love me." "That's right," Emily affirmed, "and one very special horse." Thunder gently nuzzled Sophie's hair, extracting a small giggle. The sound Emily lived. For these days, a letter had arrived yesterday. Emily hadn't shared it with Sophie, instead taking it to Jack and Mary for consultation. Richard was seeking compassionate early release due to a cancer diagnosis. His lawyer claimed he wanted to make amends before he died. Emily's hand trembled at the memory. Richard, free again. The mere possibility had awakened her own nightmares, memories of being pushed downstairs, of gaslighting so severe she'd questioned her own sanity, of discovering he'd attempted to murder their daughter. "Can I sleep in Thunder's shelter tonight?" Sophie asked, interrupting Emily's dark thoughts. "It's too cold, sweetheart, but how about if I bring your mattress into my room? We can leave the window open to hear thunder." Sophie nodded, her small face solemn in the moonlight. "He speaks to me sometimes, you know, not with words, but I understand." "What does he say?" Emily asked, lifting Sophie into her arms again. "That he'll always find me if I'm lost. That he knew, even before he saved me, that I belonged with him." Sophie yawned, her eyelids growing heavy. "That's why he jumped the fence that day. He was looking for me." Emily kissed her daughter's forehead, carrying her back toward the house where Mary stood in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Another nightmare?" Mary asked quietly. Emily nodded. "The creek again." Mary's expression softened with understanding. "I'll make some chamomile tea. And Emily, whatever you decide about that letter, we're all with you. Richard can't hurt either of you again. We won't let him." Emily looked back at Thunder's shelter, at the horse still watching vigilantly. Then, down at Sophie now sleeping against her shoulder. "No," she agreed softly, "we won't."